I am including the same opening in all my draft reviews, so you can skip ahead if you read and plan to read them all. I know many will just read for their own teams. Being a writer is a service-based industry, really. The consumer is right and I need to make sure my articles appeal to the consumer. I lead off with this, as consumers love draft grades. I know grading a draft is silly right now, but I still want to give the readers what they want. So instead of grades, I rank classes in divisions. I put them in order for the class 1 liked the most to the least. In addition, since I wrote up all 75 picks on day 1, I will be mostly focused on other selections. One of my favorite picks will be from day 1, as I have focused on those players so much already. This was of one of my least favorite divisions, in terms of the draft. There is a large gap between the Padres and every other team in this division. The Padres had my favorite day 2 class in general. The Diamondbacks and I continue to disagree on value, and the Dodgers ended up with one of my bottom 5 classes in this entire draft. San Diego Padres number of players in top 101 to 3 favorite pick, Sean Gilby, 2B, Muhlenberg HSPA, favorite day 3 pick, Sean Gilby, 2B, Muhlenberg HSPA, riskiest pick, Dylan Coleman, RHP, Missouri State. The Padres had a day 1 for the ages. They grabbed 3 players in my top 50 and not a one of them was an overdraft by my board. After this, things dropped off quite a bit for me, in terms of value, as the Padres would not select another player from my big board. Dylan Coleman is the rare college player, who is a bigger risk than the first-round prep arm. Weathers has been a very consistent player and Coleman has never shown any consistency, in terms of performance or stuff. If he had shown consistency in both of those arms, he could have been a top 5 pick. He has the size, 6 feet 5 inches, velocity, and the makings of 3 above average to plus pitches. He has shown below average command and control, which are the hardest things to fix with any pitcher. There's a chance for a potential number 2 or ace arm, but the odds of that happening are likely about 1%. However, if his control and command can sneak up to 45 level grades, then Coleman could be a very good reliever down the road. I have to comment on some other day 2 picks. Juwan Harris is a former football player who never put it all together on the diamond. Rutgers baseball is a program that has struggled and a lot was put on Harris to star. He could be a player whose profile elevates once he is coached up. Luke Becker was a highly productive senior in the SEC who did a bit of everything for Kentucky. Jose Quezada is an undersized senior reliever who had control issues, but missed a lot of bats. San Diego drafted a few Ohio kids, which always stands out to me. Evan Parks announced quickly that he is headed back to Kent State and will get a chance to pitch, which is likely his future, as he has been mid-90s on the mound in the past. Nick Thwaites should sign with the Padres, though he is a pretty maxed-out arm who profiles as more of a back-end starter type. Nick Gatewood in the 11th also intrigued me, as he is still 20 and has 2 years of great performance at the small conference level for Georgia State. He also has had success with wood bats. There is a lot of swing and miss to his game, but he's a nice day 3 pick. Sean Gilby really stood out as a day 3 pick though. He was rumored to be a target of several teams in the 2nd to 4th round range. I thought the Padres had saved some money throughout the draft, and the stretch on seniors they took at the end of day 2 should help them lock up Gilby. He is not fleet of foot, and his size means he likely ends up at 3rd, where he should have enough arm for the position. There is a chance he might end up in left field. The reason for the excitement with Gilby is that he is a cold-weather bat with legitimate plus power. He has plus bat speed and posts some of the better exit velocity numbers in the class. He is raw and his swing needs a lot of refinement, but it is his power potential which makes him so intriguing. There are those who think he could play second, where his power potential would make him a rare player. Arizona Diamondbacks number of players in top 101 to 3 favorite pick Ryan Weiss, RHP, Wright State favorite day 3 pick Blaze Alexander, SS, IMG Academy riskiest pick Jackson Goddard, RHP, Kansas City. Diamondbacks' first 3 picks were in reverse order, in terms of my value in this draft, though they did come back with several interesting selections on day 2 and 3. The Diamondbacks led off day 3 with a college power arm who had issues with injuries, consistency, and control. His strikeout rate was up this year, as was his walk rate. Goddard has been up to 97 and might profile best in the pen long-term. He has the size and fastball teams look for, but has none of the polish that would make him a safe college pitcher with a reliever floor. They followed up Goddard with a pitcher who has a somewhat similar profile, in Ryan Weiss. Weiss has similar size and build, and while he has not hit 97, he has hit 96. I saw him in person this year when he came out of the pen to close out the Horizon League Championship. He had the easiest velocity I had seen in recent years, hitting 96 on a cold gun without any effort. His velocity was up and down this fall, but he performed very well for Wright State, walking just 18 to 92 strikeouts. He might not have quite the pure stuff of Goddard, but has a lot higher floor, and he signed for $150K less. I rated Weiss higher than Goddard, and I know I was not alone in that. Matt Mercer was supposed to be the next great Oregon pitcher and joins Weiss and Goddard in the high-velocity club. He, much like Goddard, was very inconsistent this year and went from a projected day 1 player to a day 2 pick. Tyler Holton was a pick I loved as well in this draft. The lefty is an old junior who was draft eligible a year ago and missed most of the year with Tommy John surgery. He doesn't have premium stuff, but last season had a high strikeout rate along with low hit and walk rates. Batters never seemed to pick his stuff up clean, and he was the best pitcher Florida State had. The fact the D-backs got him for slot in the 9th is a steal in my book. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Levi Kelly as well. I want to again point out that the reason this draft is rated a 2 is mostly thanks to day 2, where the Diamondbacks cleaned up. Kelly is an upside arm who is old for his class and is unlikely to add a lot more to his stuff. He profiles more than likely as a reliever, but could be a potential starter down the road. While the best pick the Diamondbacks made was Blaze Alexander, I will get back to him in a bit. There were 3 names that stood out to me, for different reasons. Andy Token I saw pitch in person at Missouri. He is your typical pitch ability righty, though his stuff did play up a bit when he moved to the pen. There is a chance for a mid-reliever there with his control and command. Justin Lewis is another top college performer. He is a big kid, at 6 feet 6 inches, and while his era was up, his strikeout rate also took a big jump this year, going up over 4 strikes per 9. His walk rate went up as well, but was still under 3.5. He has been prone to the long ball, but in the 12th he is a great pick as a potential starter. Zach Shannon is a player I have followed for years. He was considered a possible first-rounder out of high school, but instead of going to Ohio State, he went the JUCO route, bouncing between 2 programs. He has hit for big power in the JUCO ranks. He is an all-bat kid, but one I will be following closely. Now back to Blaze Alexander, a shortstop with a 70-grade name and 70-grade arm. He had first-round talk at points this year, but as is the case with nearly every player who has fallen, he was very inconsistent this spring. A lot of people I talked with did not put a single plus tool on him, outside of his arm. There is a chance for an above-average shortstop with Alexander. Colorado Rockies number of players in top 101 to 3 favorite pick Terrence Evra, SS, Minnesota favorite day 3 pick Kyle Daters, 3B, UNC riskiest pick Grant Levine, 1B, Bedford HS, NY. Colorado went with a lot of well-known names throughout this draft. They had a mix of ceiling and safety, and continued their recent tradition of drafting a player with bloodlines early. I did not see Ryan Felder this year, but have done so in the past. He had some day to talk before the season, mostly due to his big build and 97 mph fastball. He could bulk up, so there was a chance that he could add more velocity to that fastball. His command and control are both below average and part of the reason he was moved to the pen for Ohio State this year. Andrew Cazada looks like a backhand starter to me, but his stuff has played up in the pen and he could end up there. He has yet to turn 21 and just 1 year playing in Division I, meaning he might have more growth potential than his size would make most think. Nico Decolati has 3 years of strong performance data and played well in the Cape with wood bats. Yet, with his tools, one can't help but wonder why he did not completely dominate the level he played at, considering his physical talents. Cade Harris is another player I tracked this year, as his doubles and walk rates were both off the charts in a star-studded Oklahoma outfield. If you followed me at all this year, then you know I love Terran Avra. When you look at the indicators of a player who is very likely to overperform his draft position and surprise people with performance, Avra checks every single box. He'd end up at second instead of short, but if you could buy stock on players, Avra would be someone I would put some money on. Kyle Daters was the day 3 pick that stood out. He was likely hurt by a so-so performance in the Cape with wood bats, as every year it seems to carry more value. Daters did not excel in any one area outside of batting average this year. He has always been able to work counts and get on base via the walk. His strikeouts were nearly in line with his walk rate this season. He is not the biggest kid and never has shown a ton of power, so it might be hard for him to find a home at third. He had been a pitcher and a shortstop in the past and could be tried at second in the future, where his bat would play up more. San Francisco Giants number of players in top 101 to 3 favorite pick, Jake Wong, RHP, Grand Canyon University favorite day 3 pick, Ryan Olenek, of Ole Miss riskiest pick, Blake Rivera, RHP, Wallace State CC. The Giants' first 2 picks were home run selections for me, and both would make the Giants' top 5 prospects for me from day 1. After that they made a few picks that mostly left me scratching my head, as I do every year with the Giants drafts. In the past, they were able to prove me wrong year in and out, but over the last few years, their system has become one of the worst in baseball, with failed high pick after failed high pick. On day 3, they did not get the pick wrong, just Wong, Jake Wong, actually. This pick was early for me, but in terms of the Giants draft, outside of the first 2, this was the only pick where I could sit back and think that the Giants got a likely future major league player. Wong profiles best as a reliever, to me, where his stuff has played up in the past. Grand Canyon has come very far as a program, but with Wong's stuff, I like to see him perform better against the level of competition he faced. Is a rather safe reliever profile, and Wong likely breaks the Giants' top 10 as well. Blake Rivera was drafted by the Giants last year in the 32nd round. He goes a lot higher this year and received $800K, which is in line with a second-round pick. Rivera has a mid-90s fastball and a curve that is a potential plus weapon. The debate is whether he will end up in the pen or as a starter. As a reliever, there have been a few Kimbrel comps thrown around, but he is still a 20-year-old JUCO player who is far from the majors. These facts alone make him the riskiest pick the Giants made. The day 3 pick that stood out was Ryan Olenek, an outfielder from Ole Miss who was announced as a pitcher, which I still assume is an error. Olenek has the size, at 6 feet 5 inches, and a strong arm to potentially work as a starter, but at Ole Miss he has worked in the outfield, due to his arm and his speed. He might be a big kid, but he runs well and hits for almost no power. He was one of the hardest players to strike out in the county and almost never walks. He hit a lot of doubles, mostly thanks to his speed. His lack of power puts a limit on his ceiling, but his overall performance in the SEC and his size makes me wonder what launch angle could do for Olenek. Los Angeles Dodgers number of players in top 100 1-to-1 favorite pick Braden Fisher, RHP, Clear Falls HSTX, favorite they 3 pick Trey Todd, C, Liberty riskiest pick JT Ginn, RHP, Brandon. HSMS. The Dodgers drafted just one player from my top 101, and after being rather conservative over the last few years, this was a draft that was full of early risk. JT Ginn was their top pick and has some of the best consistent velocity in the class, not just among prep arms, but IL arms. He is also undersized and a player most people I talked with thought would end up in the pen long term. Michael Grove looked good a year ago, but was a surprise second-rounder after missing the year with injuries. Rooney is a big lefty, with middling velocity, who has the size to start, but right now shows 2 pitches he can count on and could be a back-end arm. Devin Mann is a big second baseman who can hit for power at points and work a count, but has not put it all together yet. Luke Heyer had his first chance to start this year at Kentucky and proceeded to have one of the best years in the country. There could be more growth in there than the typical senior. Decon Lipwood has been a starter since he set foot on the campus at Florida. His power was up and his strikeouts down this year. He profiles as a utility player and is a good value in the 10th round. Braden Fisher was the most interesting pick the Dodgers made, outside of Ginn. If my board had gone to 125, he would have made it as a young for his class pitcher with number 2 high side. His lack of time on the summer circuit might have made him a player who slid through a bit, especially when you consider that he signed for under $500K. He has been up to 96 with a quick, clean delivery, which means that if his changeup develops, he could start, but if it does not, then he has a very good chance to be a reliever. He will need to add some bulk, but it's easy to picture him throwing 98 out of the pen down the road. Day 3 had some names that stood out. Stephen Kolek is a big arm whose brother was a former number 2 overall pick who has managed to pitch 39 games over the last 5 years since he was drafted. Stephen is more of a back-end starter who performed much better as a sophomore than a junior. Trey Dillard is a JUCO arm with big velocity who could be a hard sign in the 16th round. Trey Todd in the 20th stood out the most to me, thanks to his high-level production the last 2 years. He moved to Liberty this year and outshone bigger-name teammate, DJ Artis. His power production was down, but still strong, and his stolen bases were way down from a year ago. Yet, his walk rate stayed extremely high, which is encouraging. His production in the JUCO route was beyond video game, and while he moved to small school ranks, he still continued to perform, which makes him an interesting player in the 21st round.